What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video of me, my old man, in a movie. And today we're going to be reviewing the film Bonhoeffer. So let's talk about it. As the world teeters on the brink of annihilation, Dietrich Bonhoeffer gets swept into the epicenter of a deadly plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler. With his faith and fate at stake, Bonhoeffer must choose between upholding his moral convictions or risking it all to save millions of Jews from genocide.
All right.
So this is your pick for a movie that we're going to see.
Yeah.
Because this isn't exactly my kind of movie. You guys know I love sci-fi and horror stuff, so this isn't like my cup of tea.
We had to twist his arm to get him there for this film.
Not that much.
Mom and I wanted to see this. I'm familiar with Bonhoeffer. I was a pastor in a former life, and I've read Cost of Discipleship. It's one of Bonhoeffer's books. I have his letters from his prison time. I've thumbed through that. So yeah, he's just an interesting character in history, and I have a deep appreciation for him. So I thought this would be a great film to go see. I actually expected that this would take off a bit more. It hasn't. I just, when I heard his name associated with the film, I thought, oh, I want to see this right out of the gate. So that's why we went to see this movie.
Yeah. So, when I'm critiquing it, you got to know it's not, I'm not really the demographic they're going after.
Yeah, right.
But I do have some opinions on it.
Okay.
And I thought that there was a lot about this film that was good, and then there was a lot about this film that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And so, it was kind of in the middle. It was solid. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah. I think, like I said a minute ago, to me it was, and I said this when we did our coming out of the theater reaction, this was a story that I'm glad is being told because of who he is and what Bonhoeffer stood for. I think it was important. A lot of ground to cover, big life. So I think that tripped up a little bit in the film. Not in a bad way. Again, it was just directing choices and writing choices, and so we'll get into that. But overall, I was pleased with it. So let's hit these characters and acting.
Acting and characters. Yeah. I thought that there were some characters that I felt like developed too quickly, that I felt like they had an opinion on something, and then in the very next scene they were reversing their opinion on that, and it just felt very jarring and quick, and it didn't feel realistic.
Yeah, you'll see that without revealing, obviously.
Yeah. But maybe there was time passed between that, but if there was time passed between that wasn't shown very well, I think that it could have been, you could show time passing differently, and it might have been more effective.
Yeah, I think the development of the characters could have been stronger in that way. I think overall the acting was solid. There was never a point, that I felt like this was a lower budget movie in any way. Well, it wasn't. I think it had $25 million, but just that it sacrificed anything in any way, and that's true for story and direction and everything. It was solid. I liked that they used a German cast. Mom was the first to pick up on that, but I went back and researched that, and a lot of the actors were German, so it felt true to life in that way. I thought his parents were intriguing to me. I really liked the development of those characters, and just I thought they were really good acting. Frank, the buddy from America that was in Alien Romulus, I like him.
Yeah, the robot guy.
I thought he was great in that film. I thought he was good in this. The one thing I thought was of Bonhoeffer, the character, I feel like, and this may have been more writing, I don't know, but he seemed naive through the whole story. Anytime I've gone and looked at Bonhoeffer's life, he seems wise, even for his years. I mean, he passed at 39 years of age, or was killed at 39 years of age. But when you look at this particular rite, I felt like he was on the receiving end of a lot of things. Hey, let us teach you about this. Hey, let us teach you about this. And while that may have been true, and where he picked up a lot of his wisdom, it made him almost seem passive. And obviously there was a part of the story where he was not passive. But he just seemed a little lost along the way, like, I don't really know what's going on and everybody has to tell me, is the simplest way I can put that. And I just wish there would have been less of that and him more of a hero, I guess, and from the start, I guess. But I don't know. That may not be realistic.
Yeah, so I gave acting and characters 7, and we're going to do 7 strawberries.
I gave it an 8. So strawberry.
If you see the film,
you get the reference there. All right, direction.
So I thought that there were a lot of handheld shots, and I said it fit the time period. It felt older with the handheld shots. Like, it wasn't as artificial. It was kind of just, the handheld shots are more rocky, more uneven, and it felt like it made it seem older.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a cool addition. But I felt like there were a lot of time jumps in this, and I felt like there were way too many to the point where you couldn't follow it all the way.
Got a little lost with this film. Yeah. There were times I was like, where are we? What time period? What it jumped a lot, and it didn't always let you know it was jumping. Mm-hmm. So, it's interesting. The director, Todd Komarnicki, I think is his name. He did Sully as well. And that one, I've seen that film, and it has a lot of time jumps, but I was referencing to you that it takes place in an airplane, the time jumps. So you always had a frame of reference. Oh, we're on the airplane. We're back at that. This, you just really didn't know where you were.
Were very similar in terms of,
the look.
The look of the scene,
even
where
the
they
location.
were. Yeah, the locations looked very similar. So yeah.
I was going to say under this as well, this is when they're doing the assassination attempt, which is part of the film. He's kind of delivering a sermon at parts of that, and there's like this interslicing between a sermon and talking about the sacrifice of Christ and dying with Christ and the assassination attempt, and it seemed a little, and the more I've read too, it's a little bit controversial, but like putting those two together, paralleling Christ's sacrifice on the cross and what they were doing, again, highly debatable, but like, I just felt like that was an odd, that could have been propagandized, I guess. Like, I just feel like that was an odd thing, two things to put together and mash up Christ's sacrifice with that. I'll just leave it at that. So it was just an interesting choice that I don't know that I agreed with fully. So overall, though,
I gave a 7.
I gave a 7. I thought he did a solid job with the, and of course he wrote it as well, so we're going to critique him on that level.
Yeah. So writing. I felt like this film rushed through the main plot way too fast, and I felt like it was too slow on the subplots. It was too slow on everywhere but the main plot. Mm-hmm. And I felt like it was interesting. There was a lot of gaps in time where I felt like it didn't cover it, and that goes back to what you said about too much ground to cover. Like, there really was a lot of ground to cover for this, and you felt that in parts of the film where it would just skip over time and you feel like you totally missed something. Like, there's something else here that I should know, but I don't.
Yeah.
And so I think there was a lot of that. But what I will say is that the third act, there was so much tension. Like, I loved the third act of this movie. Yeah. The first 2 acts were like, okay, but I thought the third act was really a good part of the film that had a lot of tension and had you kind of on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, which, interestingly enough, again, having researched this and looking at his life, how much that was where more of the creative liberties took place was at the end of the film. Mm-hmm. Dietrich's involvement with the assassination, his involvement with the freeing the Jews. Like, he was, from my understanding of history, he was a little bit more hands off on some of that and a little more distanced from the actual event. But that definitely is, when you're writing a movie, you need strong plot point and kind of, story to kind of push things along. So I understand why the choices were made to do what he did. And I agree with you. It's really just a hard thing, I think, to take this life and kind of do what they did with it. So, but overall, I was pleased. I did a 7 on this as well. I just give it solid. It was solid writing, solid all around. Yeah. So cinematography, special effects.
What I wanted to say about the time jumping, and this was interesting, I thought the past looked brighter in terms of color grading, and the present looked darker. So it almost felt like they tried to differentiate between the past and the present. The only problem was it wasn't just the past and present. It was the past before the past, and then the past, and then like there were all these different in the past moments, and so there wasn't enough color grading differences to where you could decipher. You could decipher past from present, but it was hard to decipher the past from the other time in the past. Right, and so I think that was a problem.
Yeah. I don't have anything on cinematography. I did want to just go back. We were talking about the jumping. I think there was a compression of time as well. There were things where, like, the U.S., the United States and England's view on the war was kind of compressed into something where it's like, I was confused a little bit knowing some World War II history. Like, that doesn't seem to match up with kind of where I thought we were in terms of the war at this point. So there was some of that as well. But cinematography, going back to that, I just gave it a 7.
I gave it an 8.
It was good. It was good.
I gave it an 8. Music and sound. I actually didn't have anything for music and sound.
The thing I'd say is it's interesting to me now. I'm listening a little more closely to this. I'm picking up a lot of like low violin music in films, and where it was so heavy for me was in Joker, and I feel like I'm seeing that, I'm hearing that more in film. So I picked up a little bit of that. So I gave it an 8.
I gave it a 7.
Thought the music was good.
Just generic, just sound.
So overall,
I said it was a 7.
I gave 7.4 strawberries.
Strawberries, yeah. And I wanted to say something real quick. I said Angel Studios is like the Christian Blumhouse. They've got movies coming out like every other weekend.
Yeah.
And it's like just like Blumhouse.
I think they got their own like streaming service now.
They do. They're
doing their own thing now. So, all right. Well, let's do a couple spoilers then.
All right.
Thoughts, and then we'll wrap up here.
All right, guys. Let's talk about some spoilers here. So the first thing I want to bring up is you said earlier about the compression of time. You talked about that, about how the other countries just kind of
didn't know where they were in terms of their support.
And I wanted to, America, it just felt like they didn't care.
Yeah.
Like it felt like they were worried about the war. It felt like he had to convince them that there was a threat.
Yeah.
And, by this time, this was 1945, it had been, Pearl Harbor had been bombed, which today is Pearl Harbor Day. So it's very interesting.
Right, yeah.
But they didn't care. They just we got bombed and we were like, who cares?
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. That was what I'm saying. It just seemed a little off on some of its trueness to history in that regard. I will say a few things that stood out to me. We talked about the bishop. We didn't say him by name during the non-spoiler section, but he was one of those characters that was very against, was very opposed to Bonhoeffer speaking out, and seemed very much in support of Hitler, and then he wasn't in support of Hitler. Like in that next scene, I owe you an apology, when they met at the seminary location. So he needed to be a little more conflicted on the front end if we were going to have buy-in that he turned at the end.
For sure.
I thought the strawberry line was great. The bookend of that, he talked about it with his brother, and then at the end he tells his mom, the soldier, tell my mom, I didn't get my strawberry, but my book did, or whatever. Lord's Supper, powerful at the end. There was complete silence with our audience at the end during the hanging scene.
Yeah.
I mean, they went to black when he hung. Like I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to show him get hung. And then they went to black. I thought that was just a really good handling of the scene. And then I had one more quote from the film that I just loved. It was the bishop. When they came for the socialists, I didn't speak out because I'm not a socialist. When they came for the union workers, I didn't speak out because I'm not a union worker. When they came for the Jews, I didn't speak out. But when they come for me, will there be anyone left to speak out? I mean, just the impact of that line, which I think is a historical quote, but just it's a sobering film, and it's very thought provoking, and that's why I say I'm glad this got made. Do I have some minor critiques of it? Yes, but at the end of the day, good job, well done, necessary, important, and I'm glad they took this and ran with it, and that Todd made this film.
And one thing I had here is this is why I don't like true stories. The main character always dies in every single true story. Anytime I see, based on a true story. Oh gosh, here we go again.
This guy who liked smile, and you get people. So
horror is different. Horror is different. You horror fans know it's different.
It's different when it's not true.
Yeah,
you can kill people all day long if they're not real people, but don't kill a real person. I mean, obviously, don't kill a real person. I'm not justifying, but I'm just saying it's just interesting the where you bifurcate the line here on this.
It's just different. I don't know. Smile's just different than this. I don't know.
See, I prefer the opposite. I prefer a true story where the guy dies, because that's like real gut-wrenching. Oh my gosh! But when you have the choice and you kill him off, you don't have the choice. It actually happened. I mean, it is what it is. You have to tell the story. But when you, by choice, kill somebody in a story, what did you do that for? You didn't have to do that. And they do it anyway. They didn't have to, and they chose to. That's cruel.
No.
Oh, sorry, your microphone.
The mic.
That's cruel.
It's different, all right? It's not the same thing, and I'm fine with it.
That's why Braveheart's so powerful, my friend, because of real... Wait. You saw it. No, were you going to say he died?
No, he did die.
Yeah, but it was a true story. Did you know that was a true story?
No.
It's real.
But
William Wallace existed.
It's just different. All right. It just is.
All right. There it is. And
if you can relate, horror fans, put in the comments if you can relate to that. That it's just different when they kill people off in horror movies.
Okay. We got more movies coming.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be reviewing more.
Craven coming up.
Oh, nobody gets killed in that movie, I bet.
Yep. Craven, Sonic, Mufasa. Some good movies coming up.
All right.